Let's go to Worcester. Jane McGee is a teacher in Worcester. Jane, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
What do you teach, Jane?
I teach psychology, so I only teach sixth form students. So I'm in that fortunate position of teaching the ones that are really keen and motivated.
Wow, that's always a bonus, isn't it? People who actually want to be there, which is great. Yeah. So, I mean, interesting and serendipitous that you're a psychology teacher, the psychology of, you know, people downing tools, etc. I'd imagine you've done this for many years, not something you want to do, I understand that. There is, it seems, just on a wider point here, there's a bit of contagion when it comes to strike action at the moment, of course, because teachers aren't on their own, and we know that today the civil servants and the train drivers over the coming days, the paramedics, the firefighters, the postmen, the driving examiners, there's a bit of a thing going at the moment. Is this more of an anti-Tory thing than it is a pro-teacher thing?
I think it's known in psychology as the snowball effect. I think when one person starts, then it will set off a chain of events. And I think with the train drivers' strike, I've been to a rally today in Worcester, where I live. I actually teach in Stourbridge. And I think physiotherapists are next to come out. So I think it does set off a chain of events. And just as Ted just said, it's the final. Strike action is never the first choice of people. It tends to be, you know, when all else has failed, and the negotiations have failed. So the professions need to get attention to their cause. So strike action is one way of drawing attention to the cause. The only problem is the headlines is kind of paid. You know, these lazy teachers, they finish at 3:30, they get all the long holidays. What are they complaining about? But what people fail to see is, as Ted said, has just been on, that some teachers are working 60 hours a week, primary teachers especially, because of huge class sizes and workload. So it's not just about pay, it's about terms and conditions, recruitment.
I get that, and I know it's not a, sorry to interject, Jane, I know it's not a race to the bottom, etc., so I do understand that argument, but nonetheless, and it's the same point I put to Ted, really, there's lots of people in very similar positions, whether in the public sector, whether it's in the private sector. But overall, if you're a teacher, and particularly if you're a teacher with many years' experience and you've put in a good innings in that profession, then the overall package is pretty good. The wage is quite good. The holidays, yes, I know that you're not all laying in a hammock in Barbados for 6 weeks. I get that, but they're more generous than other professions, and a pension that goes with it, where, you know, the government or the taxpayer puts in a good old whack on your behalf, etc. So overall, I mean, it's a pretty good deal, isn't it, being a teacher? And it's pretty much a job for life, unless you do something horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in the civil service. I've also worked in the NHS, and teaching for me is my favourite out of all. I've been doing it nearly 30 years. I'm coming to the end of my teaching career. But people who are starting off, the reason I'm striking is not just about myself, it's about younger colleagues.
Sure.
And I am concerned that I was speaking to somebody at the rally today who are trained on the Teach First programme, and a lot of people that person trained with have left teaching already within, you know, 1 year of qualifying. So the government are paying the money to train teachers, but they're not retaining, they're not staying. So that is one of the issues that really needs to be looked at. And I think one of the reasons is workload. The workload, what we don't hear is the breakfast clubs, the lunchtime clubs, teachers staying after school, teachers not finishing at that time, you know, putting all that extra work in, taking it home with them. And you know, people have had enough, and the strikes are a last resort, really, to bring these issues into the public domain, to, you know, to try and resolve them. And hopefully they'll be resolved and no further action will be needed. But we'll just have to see what happens. But
there's always a reality check on these things, isn't there, where regardless how much sympathy some people might have, I said at the beginning, if you said to anybody, you know, do you want the person that teaches your, you know, I took my little boy into school today, he's in reception, the youngest one, and I was looking at the teacher there, he's a very good teacher, and, you know, I don't envy that task of teaching, you know, 28, 4 and 5 year olds, goodness me, and it arguably gets harder in some years as well. But nonetheless, you know, I looked at that situation, I thought, well, it's still, you know, yes, if somebody said to me, could you pay this guy more money for teaching your child? I think everybody would instinctively say, yeah, of course I would. But then when you take a step back and you have to sort of divorce sentiment a little bit on these things and think, well, if everybody got what they're asking for, I mean, the country, which is already skint, would be even more skint.
Is it? Is it skint? Because
Well, it's not looking tickety-boo at the moment.
But if you look at the money that the government managed to find for the Rwanda scheme to send migrants back to Rwanda, they managed to find that quite easily. So money can be...
but money is obviously, budgets are hypothecated to different departments, obviously.
Yeah, but money can be found from, I mean, it's not up to me to look at the economics of it and say how money can be found, but we've got the NHS, the nurses on, striking over pay, firefighters soon, teachers who are just not happy, and some negotiations need to be made to get, these issues resolved, and there has to be a happy medium. I understand that, but there needs to be some discussion, and people need to get around the table and sort this out. Yeah,
where is that happy medium, of course, is the $64,000 question. Jane, thank you for your time. Jane McGee is a psychology teacher in Worcester.